on all our social media platforms. That's at TV47KE, or send me a direct tweet on my handle on Twitter at Komowino. But don't forget the hashtag Days Counter. For now, let's have a look at the top stories. Right, welcome to the top stories. Retailers that are selling goods at exorbitant prices have been given a stern warning. In his state address today, President Uhuru Kenyatta has called this new trend among traders a crime, which he said his government will not take lightly. Here is more.
To all Kenyans, we must play our part. We must do that which we must do. This is not the time to take undue advantage on our people. And again, as I said on Sunday, and I repeat again, even to our traders, our supermarket owners, do your business. Do it right. Do it justly. Nobody in this country has ever had a problem with somebody making profit. But indeed, it is highly immoral if we take advantage of an unfortunate situation to make super profit. And we will continue, as I said, and we have started already, to take action on those traders who are hiking prices and with no reason, just to make extra profit. We are going to take action on those people, and because it is criminal for you to really use an unfortunate situation to enrich yourself. So please, when it comes to hand sanitizers, when it comes to food, when it comes to goods and services that people need, I am appealing to all our business fraternity. Act like our friends in the banking sector have acted today. Act in the interest of our people. Act in the interest of our country. That way, we will all be able to survive and to see ourselves through.
That was a state address by the president himself. And as traders, you've listened, you've been warned against hiking the prices against the Kenyans and taking advantage of the situation. Let's now move on to other stories. As coronavirus cases are confirmed to have risen to over 160,000, the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom has only one advice for states across the globe. And I quote, test, test, test. Countries cannot fight fire blindfolded. End of quote. Let's take a look.
The World Health Organization called on all countries on Monday, the March of 16th, to ramp up their testing programs as the best way to slow the advance of the coronavirus pandemic.
And we cannot stop this pandemic if we don't know who is infected. We have a simple message for all countries: test, test, test.
With limited testing available, U.S. officials have recorded nearly 3,000 cases and 62 deaths.
So we advise countries to stick to testing, and from there, of course, all the steps that they need to do. And we advise countries to stick to containment strategy, because we believe that this epidemics, this pandemics, or this virus is controllable.
Without testing, cases could not be isolated and the chain of infection would not be broken.
Some countries have expanded their capacity by using stadiums and gyms to care for mild cases, with severe and critical cases cared for in hospitals. Another option is for patients with mild disease to be isolated and cared for at home. Caring for infected people at home may put others in the same household at risk. So it's critical that caregivers follow WHO's guidance on how to provide care as safely as possible.
In the United States, the Trump administration has come under fire from critics for what they say has been a slow gearing up of testing for the new virus.
I think the support we're getting for COVID-19, the response is really encouraging. At the initial stage, we were a bit worried, but now we're getting almost close to the funding we asked for, and we expect more support. And the announcement from US is really significant, and we will expect actually more countries to contribute. But we're almost
have an impact, but it will not.
Alan Owino, TV 47.
Yes, that was the WHO Director General Tedros, and the COVID-19 virus has proven to be a serious issue. And judging from the conversation I've been hearing around, some people are still not taking it as serious as it should be. So be a bit more cautious and test yourself and basically stay safe. Let's now move on to the next story. Investors at the NSE have lost 232 billion in cash after the coronavirus triggered a panic sell. Although the NSE, just like other securities exchange entities globally, has been performing dismally with the bulls shedding by 125 billion Kenyan shillings. This has come especially after the coronavirus started hampering the normal flow of activities, such as what has been witnessed in China. Foreign investors continue to flee blue chip farms as well. Sophia Ali with that story.
Thank you so much. I'm seated here at the NSE Exchange 55, whereby I'm being joined by the NSE boss to tell us a little bit about how the NSE or the stocks of the Nairobi Stock Exchange is performing, following the announcement by the president of the emerging pandemic of the coronavirus. Thank you so much, Mr. Odundo, for joining us today. Could you kindly tell us about the performance of the stocks in Nairobi following that a news article that was published last week that the investors are losing their stocks following the coronavirus pandemic?
Thank you very much, Sophie. Now, yes, the news of the corona has been with us for a while. Since the initial announcement about the global effect of corona, when we saw markets globally getting affected. And so we've been monitoring this carefully, and it's only until last week that we actually saw a large amount of turnover on our counters, primarily investors selling off a bit, but largely supported by a strong local side, because for any trade to happen, there has to be a buyer on the other side. So we had a very strong domestic demand as well for those shares, and that also witnessed a weakening of some of the prices, and on Friday we witnessed the index going just heading to below 5%, and we had to take remedial action to limit or place a halt on the market on Friday, and then it closed at about 3 o'clock within the halt period. Now that's a normal action we take just to allow the market to digest information that has come up and just take positions based on an informed basis. So that's how the market normally operates, and we witnessed that decline. But having said that, these are normal market cycles. So what we saw again today, we have seen the index losing slightly lower points, just about 3%, but with turnovers of about 1.4 billion shillings, which again is a reflection that for every person exiting, there's somebody buying. And the domestic demand has been very strong. So I must say that yes, there has been trading, and normally different types of investors will make decisions based on their circumstances. So last week was a strong foreign sales side, and a very strong local buy side, and that could change again depending on how circumstances present themselves. So largely, I think people are factoring in this. It's a risk. It's a global risk, and taking positions depending on how they perceive the risk to be. Yeah.
Would you say that some of these investors, probably who are selling out and buying out, you've mentioned that they are probably local investors, are they also buying and selling out the local companies?
We've seen trading activity across all our counters to start with, but more trading on the large cap companies, which is the norm of the market. So the highly liquid companies are seeing more volume coming in the normal fashion, because these are the stocks that people have. And so the current prices are so attractive for the local buyers because the prices have come down to levels that they like. And that's why the domestic institutional buyers, mainly pension funds, will want to take advantage of these prices because it does make the multiples are so attractive, the dividend yields are so attractive. So holding the stock at these levels is very good. And some of these counters are very attractive, and you can't get the volume they're getting now. So I must say that they're taking positions on counters they would like to hold, and at very attractive prices. So that's primarily what's informing their decisions.
All right, now still on matters coronavirus. The World Health Organization's Africa director says the continent's ability to tackle coronavirus has improved. However, concerns remain rife over whether overburdened health systems are ready to tackle the burden of coronavirus.
Africa's ability to tackle coronavirus is improving, the World Health Organization's Africa director has said, amid concerns from health experts that the region is already overburdened with cases of measles, malaria, Ebola, and other infectious diseases.
The capacity of countries to address this outbreak has improved extremely in the last few months.
Rebecca Moeti said previous medical emergencies like the Ebola outbreak had prepared the continent.
So point of entry, screening, for example, surveillance, laboratory capacity, and therefore we're able to build on this.
She was speaking as Senegal confirmed its first case of the virus, the second in sub-Saharan Africa after an Italian man tested positive in Nigeria last week. On Monday, Nigeria's Minister of Health, Osagi Ehanire, updated the country on preparations.
There's a brand new emergency unit, state-of-the-art, that is under construction, has been under construction in Gwagwalada, which was not yet completed, but they're working at feverish pace, and they should be completed by next month, April.
Countries have introduced screening measures at airports, and Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda have suspended flights to China. Medical workers have also been preparing isolation units, but some fear they do not have the capacity to deal with the large-scale outbreak. Dr. Mekelo is in charge of the disaster committee at Cameroon's Douala State Hospital.
Indeed, at the moment we're very limited because we can't take care of more than 3 sick people, so there needs to be a center with a large capacity.
He says they also need better equipment and for a significant quantity of staff to be trained. As of Tuesday, coronavirus had spread to over 60 countries, including North African nations Algeria, Tunisia, and Egypt. According to a Reuters tally, more than 89,000 people have been infected, and the global death toll exceeds 3,000.
All right, that story brings us to the paper review, where we'd like to have a look at the top stories making headlines in the business world as per the Business Daily newspaper, having the Reader End screen tab talking about what Kenya can learn from China and the Singapore Corona War. We have the ideas and debate and the economy, why oil prices wars are not sustainable, and on the virus beat we have how fear and panic had Corona War. We can check the next headline, dividend pay delays as virus stalls AGMs, and it says investors will work longer for dividends and charge of directors in companies after regulators started freezing annual shareholder meetings due to the coronavirus outbreak. Taxman vets a fresh City Hall parking term, and we have MPs reject Yatani pick for CDF chief. On the lower beat of the front paper of the Business Daily, we have banks defy CBK on removal of M-Pesa transfer fees, and basically what we're seeing on the paper is the ripple effect of the coronavirus outbreak on the economy, and that's what we had for you on the paper review. At this point, let's have a look at the business voices making headlines across the world.
When I was meeting with people, they would be surprised to see that it was actually me. But nonetheless, I think the main thing was that I actually went to do my MBA last year, and the reason why I decided to do it last year was because I felt like having a piece of paper would actually prove to people that I am capable, although I do have the technology behind me and this amazing team. So yeah, I think it's been a rough road, particularly in terms of my age. A lot of the CEOs here are not only men, but also foreigners. So then it becomes this huge problem where you look around and yeah, you don't really see faces like mine or younger people or women particularly. So I think that's something that we need to change.
Next up, let's have a look how the shilling is trading against other currencies across the world. All right, thank you very much for staying with us on that fast beat of the show. At this point, we'd love to take a short break, but don't go away. We'll be back with more news.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands, or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days and seek immediate medical attention or report to the nearest health center. This message has been brought to you by the government of Kenya and its partners. For accurate information on COVID-19, dial *719# or call 719. Follow us on Twitter at MOH_Kenya, at spokesperson GOK, at WHO.
All right, thank you very much for staying with us. If in any case you're joining us right now, you can communicate with us on all our social media platforms. That's at TV47KE across all of them, or you might as well use the details on the bottom right of your screen to send us a text or give us a call. Let's now jump straight into the business news. Several African governments have enacted more strict measures to tackle the coronavirus outbreak. This is as more sub-Saharan countries report new cases of the condition. Take a look.
Across sub-Saharan Africa, borders are being closed, flights cancelled, and strict quarantine measures put in place as several governments scramble to stop the spread of coronavirus. The disease now has a foothold in more than half of sub-Saharan African countries after several, including Central African Republic, Republic of Congo, Eswatini, Namibia, and Rwanda, reported their first cases at the weekend. On Sunday, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa declared the flu-like virus COVID-19 a national disaster.
This situation calls for an extraordinary response. There can be no half measures.
That response includes prohibiting travel to and from countries such as Italy, Germany, China, and the United States, and a ban on gatherings of more than 100 people. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta said his government was suspending travel from any country with reported coronavirus cases.
We have suspended learning in all our education institutions with immediate effect.
Ghana will also close its borders to any foreigners from any country with more than 200 cases in the last 14 days. And in Senegal, President Macky Sall has ordered the closure of all schools and universities for the next 3 weeks and the cancellation of religious festivals.
Before going home, I will get some hand sanitizer before greeting my family. Because at the moment, I don't know if I have it or not. I don't know.
Tanzania, which reported its first case on Monday, has already cancelled flights to India and suspended school games.
Now, in other news, Ivory Coast has joined other countries in shuttering educational establishments and suspending flights as the continent braces for more cases of the COVID-19. Take a look.
Schools out in Ivory Coast after the West African nation followed other sub-Saharan countries in closing educational establishments in an attempt to stop the spread of coronavirus. Ivory Coast only has a handful of confirmed cases at the moment, but the number of patients across the continent is rising daily, increasing fears for mothers like Aminata Kone.
This illness worries me because the last time I looked at the 8 o'clock news on the national channel, they told us there was a third case. It's getting very worrying because we have the feeling it's starting to get bigger.
Tanzania, Liberia, Benin, Gabon and Somalia are among those to recently report their first cases, and more than half of Africa's countries are now treating nearly 400 patients. That's a relatively small number compared to the global outbreak, which has infected at least 180,000 people and caused over 7,000 deaths. But health experts are concerned that often dilapidated health systems in some African countries will struggle to cope as cases mount. On Monday, Chinese billionaire Jack Ma pledged to donate over 1 million coronavirus tests to the continent, and the World Bank said it had committed $60 million to help Kenya tackle the outbreak. The East African nation is one of those to shutter its learning institutions. As well as closing schools, Ivory Coast has also cancelled flights to Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, Tunisia and Algeria.
It's definitely a beautiful thing to see more and more countries taking stringent measures to actually help curb the spread of this virus. Let's move on. Zimbabwe's government has suspended the transfer of local shares to foreign stock exchanges. This suspension touches on one of the main sources of hard currency as inflation soars.
Zimbabwe has shut down one of the main sources of hard currency for citizens and businesses, as soaring inflation, reported at over 540% on Monday, wipes out the local currency. Investors have been able to access dollars by buying shares in companies like Old Mutual, Pretoria Portland Cement and Seedco, which are listed on the Zimbabwean Stock Exchange, and then selling them on foreign bourses where the companies are also listed. But on Monday, Zimbabwe said it was suspending, for 12 months, the transfer of local shares in dual-listed companies to foreign stock exchanges. The move is part of measures, according to the National Treasury, to weed out some of the visible sources of currency instability. Zimbabwe reintroduced the Zimbabwe dollar last June, but with no foreign or gold reserves to back it up, the value has plunged and inflation shot up. On Monday, the country's data agency Zimstat resumed the publication of consumer price data, which was suspended last year. It said year-on-year inflation was 540.16% in February. The central bank forecast that the annual inflation rate will fall to 50% by the end of the year. But analysts say price pressures remain due to the weak exchange rate and shortages of food following drought.
All right, let's now get a global perspective of the impact of the coronavirus. In Washington, D.C., officials closed the U.S. Capitol complex to the public after a staffer for a senator from Washington state tested positive for the coronavirus. White House tours have since been cancelled, with the Kennedy Center performances also being put on hold through the end of the month. Here's more.
As U.S. President Donald Trump declared a national emergency over the fast-spreading coronavirus, much of Washington, D.C.'s tourist sites have announced they will close. In Washington, D.C., officials closed the U.S. Capitol complex to the public after a staffer for a senator from Washington state tested positive for the coronavirus.
We knew we just had to close it down. It is really sad. It's really tough for our patrons, our artists, and our staff. But we really think it's the most important thing to do, to be a part of this larger effort to contain this virus.
As schools and universities in the nation's capital announced closures, family headed to the zoo only to find it too will be closing on Friday the 13th of March, disappointing some tourists while others took it in stride.
Anybody who has a ticket between now and the 31st of March has the ability either through email or through telephone to be in touch with our ticket office. They can decide to exchange into a future performance. They can decide to put it into a gift certificate so that they can come to a future performance at their leisure. They can make a contribution back to the Kennedy Center.
White House tours were cancelled and the Kennedy Center cancelled all performances through the end of the month when they say they will re-evaluate their decision.
The financial impact is yet to be known exactly. I will tell you that just through March 31, we probably have about $4 million at risk, either through refunds or a big gala that we were going to have.
According to the World Health Organization, the virus that emerged in central China in December has now spread to over 130 countries and territories and infected more than 138,000 people worldwide. It has so far led to 46 U.S. deaths.
It's disappointing, but I mean, you've got to look at the grand scheme of things. If it contains a pandemic, then I think it's quite reasonable to close the zoo for a bit. For me, the virus is mostly affecting people that are in poor health. I'm young and I'm relatively healthy, so it's not really a concern for me. It'd just be like having the flu for a bit, being convenient, but it's not the end of the world. So yeah, it's a little bit disappointing that not everything I want to see on my holiday is available, but in the grand scheme of things, it's fine.
And we actually were on the fence about coming, but when we heard the zoo was still open, we decided to still travel. Today's the last day it's open, so we got lucky, and it's a beautiful day.
Anything else you're going to be seeing in D.C.?
We had planned to go into D.C. to see some of the monuments tomorrow, but with everything closing and people being concerned about being in large groups, we're probably not going to go. We're actually probably going to head home a day early.
It's a disappointment that a lot of public gatherings and spaces are going to be closed, but it makes a lot of sense for public health and safety. So I think everybody just has to stay calm and take it in stride.
So we had a White House tour that got canceled yesterday, and then we're going home tomorrow. But it's very sad that everything's closing.
Do you think it makes sense, or do you think it's an overreaction?
I honestly think everything's been an overreaction. We went to the grocery store this morning and couldn't even get anything. Yeah, so I think it's a little bit crazy.
So we went to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, and all the interactions were closed, so it wasn't as fun as it was for kids because you couldn't touch anything or do anything.
Reporting for TV47, I'm Zipporah Miller.
Right, that story brings us to the end of the business news that we had in store for you today. At this point, we'd love to take our second break, but when we get back, we'll be having a studio interview with Robert Chahuko, who is the Supervisor, Tax-Based Expansion at the Samia Tax Service Office. Don't go away, stay with us.
Welcome to Woodland Resort, carefully positioned in a tranquil environment to give guests an almost private stay with the advantage of being in a serene and spoiled surroundings. We have a tailored, bespoke and transparent travel itinerary that are personalized with individual guest preference. Our well-trained, warm and friendly service personnel attend to guests, offering them fresh traditional meals sourced locally and matched with our chef's culinary skills to ensure consistent and rushes feedback from our clients. Woodland Resort, for comfort and elegance. Located in the outskirts of Kitale town, Kitale-Webuye Road, opposite St. Joseph's Boys Kitale.
Thank you very much for staying with us right here on the Days Counter. Welcome to the second bit of this show where we have a studio interview, with Robert Ouko, who's the supervisor of the tax-based expansion Samia Tax Service Office. Robert, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's just jump straight into this discussion that we're having today. In 2019, the president signed into law the reintroduction of the turnover tax in November last year, whose annual sales to businesses whose annual sales were below 5 million shillings, right? So what I want to understand is, what is the current state of businesses in that informal sector that the tax was introduced to?
Thank you. The introduction of turnover tax in 2019 was informed by the rich base of the informal sector.
Yeah.
A majority of businesses in Kenya fall in that category, where their turnover is below 5 million in a year.
All right.
So to expand the tax base so that many Kenyans can contribute towards tax collection,
right.
In the wisdom of the government and KRA, turnover tax was introduced. Remember, turnover tax was first introduced in 2006. And then through the Finance Act of 2018, it was suspended.
Yes.
And presumptive tax was introduced, which started operating in January 2019. And then now the Finance Act 2019 reintroduced turnover tax.
Yeah.
Yes, as I said, this is formed by the many Kenyans who operate within that threshold.
All right. Now, most of the times when you talk about turnover tax and the presumptive tax, it's a lot of question is pegged on the fact that people believe this is double taxation. Can you probably just shed more light on this so that people understand if this is double taxation or it's a different ballgame?
Presumptive tax and turnover tax, okay. There's no double taxation. Presumptive tax, as it was introduced in 2019,
yeah.
Was tax based on the 15% of single business permit issued by the county government.
Yeah.
The reintroduction of turnover tax did not eliminate presumptive tax.
Okay.
You will still pay the presumptive tax at the rate of 15% of the single business permit, and that becomes like advance tax for turnover tax.
Yeah.
When you register, file and pay turnover tax, you claim the amount you paid as presumptive tax. So you pay less by the amount you paid as presumptive tax.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Now, just to move away from the tax debate for a while before we get back to it, is that the big question that is facing KRA at the moment is that you missed to hit your target by 88 billion. What are some of the issues that pertain to this? What are some of the issues that made the KRA not be able to hit the tax target by this big amount of 88 billion, despite actually increasing other taxes and introducing new ones?
Tax collection is dependent on the economic growth.
Yeah.
So when you see KRA missed to hit the target,
yes,
it points something on the status of the economy. However, to mitigate on that,
yeah,
turnover tax can provide a solution.
Okay. What is
it? It widens the tax base.
Okay.
We have more people to pay tax, so that now everybody contributes. Currently, most people, before turnover tax, big businesses, employees, they're the one contributing. But now with the turnover tax, we expect almost every single trader to contribute towards tax collection. With that wide base, we expect to collect more.
All right.
Because turnover tax, any turnover, and turnover here means sale, gross sale for that matter.
Yeah.
Up to 5 million in a year. Should pay tax, which the rate is 3%.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, just when this turnover tax, it was to be imposed on the informal traders, right? And right now, when we are in this state that we're in as a country, where we have the COVID-19 that has hit the country, we've seen closure of many businesses, markets and all that. And one of the main concerns that people were having with introducing the tax on the informal traders, it was that they have a nomadic kind of way, because one day they're here, the next day they're there. How has the KRA been able, or how are you going to be able to make this actually work for you now that you even have businesses have closed down? How have you been able to sensitize the system so that you have these guys come onto board and actually be on board with this?
The issue of the current pandemic is beyond human. Of course, scientists are doing their part.
Right.
The government has come up with the measures which we must all abide with, and we hope that very soon God will see us through. There might be effect on businesses. For Kenya, at least now we are still safe. We still operate normally, but taking care of the measures we have been given. The nomadic nature of single business permits is not so much, because you must have a business permit to operate within a county.
Okay.
That means you have a small kiosk somewhere, a small shop somewhere, so you can operate within a county.
Right.
So you are not so nomadic. And then what we are interested in is the income. You can agree with me that majority are now tending to go online.
Okay.
Even that mama mboga selling some goods, they prefer you pay them through M-Pesa.
Yeah.
You go to Matatu, the conductor wants payment through M-Pesa. So in as much as the fare is there, the business is not so much affected.
Okay. Now, just before we go into the question of the taxation on the digital markets and platforms, one of the issues that most traders and the local traders have actually complained about is the complexity in filing returns. Where are we with this right now?
The complexity in filing tax returns has been simplified.
Okay.
With the turnover tax again, first, the rate of the turnover is 3%.
Okay.
On the gross sales. No expenses, no complicated accounts. And then filing is the simplest.
Okay.
You have to agree with me that KRA now operates on the digital platform. And domestic taxes, we have a system called iTax system. Every PIN holder is expected to register with iTax.
Yes.
Once you register, you have your iTax account with a password. So filing is simplified in a way that once you log into the platform, you go to returns.
Okay.
Then you select file tax returns.
Okay.
You select turnover tax. Then key in your gross sale for the month. Turnover tax became effective from 1st January 2020. And the due date for filing is 20th day of the month following the month of transaction. Now we are in March. By 20th of March, which is 2-3 days away, we expect people who have registered for turnover tax to file and pay the tax for February. You simply log in, go to return, select turnover tax, put the gross figure for February, which is a single figure.
Yes.
The system will calculate for you the 3%. You submit and you're done.
And you're done.
You're done.
Now, the biggest, what you've actually explained to me, this would make more sense for me, and it'd be so easy for me to access a computer, follow the steps that you've done. But I want to believe the levels of digital literacy across the country are not on the same level for different people. what is the KRA doing other than actually making this platform accessible on an online platform? Do you have people on the ground assisting those who cannot be able to?
Yes,
do
apart
this?
from people on the ground, there's the USSD.
Yeah.
You dial *572#.
All right.
And you follow the prompts.
Okay.
You'll just tell you, pay turnover tax.
All right.
Put the amount, and then you proceed. Okay. Apart from that, now we have people on the ground.
Yes.
Actually, at every KRA office, there's a section dealing with turnover tax.
Yeah.
And with turnover tax, we expect these officers to come visiting. We want the small traders, as we call them, to concentrate on their business. Their business is not tax.
Yeah.
KRA has to simplify. We'll be visiting them. Say for this period where we have the coronavirus.
Yes.
But the intention is we want to come visiting you. We introduce ourselves. We show how simple it is.
Okay.
All a trader needs to keep is the daily sales record.
Okay.
So that at the end of the month, you know how much did I sell.
Right.
Just a single figure.
Just a single figure. Okay. Now, just still talking about matters pertaining to taxation, is that one of the taxes that the taxman would love to introduce in the coming days is the tax on the digital markets and platform. And just as you mentioned earlier, every single business is actually turning to be digital in that manner, so to say. Now, with the current legislative processes in the country, the political wave, is this really a priority of the KRA still? And what would be the effect of actually taxing these digital market platforms?
Actually, it's not a priority. It's already in law.
Okay.
You know, you do your business online.
Yeah.
What KRA taxes is the income. So online is one form of getting that income.
Yeah.
The bottom line is this income. And again, when you look at the Finance Act 2019,
right,
the taxation of digital platform is already covered in there.
Okay.
Yes, but the bottom line, without going to the technicalities, you receive an income.
Yeah. So basically, you want to tap into every single income that's received.
Yes.
Yeah, which actually brings us to the next question, that how is the KRA banking on these tax measures to enhance the compliance and basically improve the economy? Because you might as well attain your targets the way you want, but how are you banking on this to actually improve the economy?
We are banking on voluntary compliance.
Yeah.
We believe as we reach to many taxpayers and as we educate them,
yes,
they will voluntarily comply.
Okay.
So that you don't have to struggle with KRA to pay your taxes. A good citizen must pay the tax.
Yeah.
Yes. We are not banking on enforcement.
Yeah.
We are banking on education and voluntary compliance.
Yeah. But just before we wrap this up, you said something interesting. You're banking on voluntary compliance. How has that been coming along? How is that as of date, since you started banking on that? How is the situation?
The voluntary compliance has been increasing.
Yeah.
People complained on the complexity of the taxation process.
Right.
And again, that's what turnover tax was brought to cure. Turnover tax is a convenience tax.
Yes.
You pay at the convenience of your business. And it's only 3% per month.
Okay.
And turnover tax is also final tax. The moment you pay final tax, the 3%, you are done with KRA for the month. Continue doing your business, wait for the next month, pay 3%, you are done.
Okay.
But remember, every tax has got, if you don't comply, there are penalties.
There's a consequence, yeah.
And it's good that our viewers are reminded that for turnover tax, if you don't file the return,
yes,
the penalty is 5,000 shillings.
Okay.
But some people file and they don't pay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's also late payment penalty or non-payment penalty, which is 5% of the tax.
All right.
But again, there's the interest. The interest is 1% per month.
Okay.
There's no need for you to do business
and
plan to pay penalty. It's not worth it.
Okay.
Just pay 3% and you're done with
KRA. You're done with it. Okay, fine. Mr. Robert Oku, thank you very much for your time. At this point, I'd love to end this. But before we end this, we have a state address that's going on right now, and we'd love to cross over there.